think we just spoke about making data-led decisions. We just spoke about how you need the right data to know when things are working, when things are not working, and make the changes that you need to. Oftentimes, the data may tell you you need a new partner, you need a new Martech stack, and SoundCloud recently did just that. They migrated their entire Martech stack and moved to the new. So Hope, I'd love to welcome you from the brand that gave us Shabuzi and Post Malone. Hope, thank you for joining us. Hope, let's start with a brief introduction about SoundCloud and everything you do there.
Sure. So my name is Hope Barrett. I've been at SoundCloud for about 2.5 years. Officially, I'm the Senior Director of Product Management, Marketing Technology, but I also have a performance marketing team, marketing analytics team, SEO. I'm building a CMS team, so lots of growth marketing channels. So SoundCloud was founded in 2007, and we have sort of a two-sided marketplace. So we have artists. So if you are an independent artist and you want to get your music out there, SoundCloud is the best place to do that, but also listeners. So we're a DSP, in this case, digital streaming platform. And we have actually the largest catalog. Because we have user-generated music or content, we have probably about 380 million tracks. So we have everything everybody else has, but we also have that DJ mix that you heard, Saturday night, and you want to hear it again, go to SoundCloud. So yeah.
Amazing. And you recently made a big Martech migration, and I think we were speaking earlier in the day as well. You didn't have a clean slate to begin with. You had a lot of technology, complexities already built in. What led you to making the decision? What made you realize that it may be time for you to find a new partner and take on this big project?
SoundCloud has a lot of tech debt, and it's just a sort of the nature of the beast. So our previous vendor that we were using, we first moved to their platform in 2016. At the time, we had to build a lot of support infrastructure in order to make everything work, and that was fine. However, come to 2023, that we didn't really maintain it, and it decayed. So we were at a point where we either had to do a re-implementation of our previous partner or find someone who better fit what we were trying to do today. So that's sort of the juncture we were at. And, we ended up deciding, well, let's see who else is out there. Maybe there's a partner that, is a better fit and we'll get more of what we need.
Got it. And any specific gaps or challenges as you were looking at the stack that you have right now, where you are and where you want to go, that really stood out?
Sure. So I would say a big one was analytics, and it's actually quite basic, but I couldn't tell you how many emails we sent. Well, sure, our vendor could tell us how many emails, but because of the support infrastructure I talked about, we had frequency caps in there. So, we would send it, but did it actually go out? And that was an issue we were dealing with. I couldn't even tell you if an email actually got to where it was supposed to be. So, we'd have people internally saying, hey, I didn't get this email. Did you send it? And they're like, well, look, we did send it. And it was hard to sort of troubleshoot what actually was going on. And I would say, sort of bottom line, it was difficult for us to innovate. So SoundCloud is very much a test and learn type of place. I mean, we're always doing, we use StatSig, we always have A/B tests going on. And we just couldn't do that really in our messaging channels. And I would say at SoundCloud, messaging is a part of the product. So sure, we have a Lifecycle team and they're in MoEngage, but we also have our product team and they're in MoEngage, our data engineers, they're in MoEngage. So it's really a part of the product. So it was crucial for us to find a partner again who was willing to work with us in all those different places.
Got it. So for you, the mandate was clear. You identified the challenges were just being able to innovate at scale and with speed, but you also had a lot of legacy. You have a bunch of different teams that are working with each other, and a migration of this kind, I'm sure, isn't the thing that everybody wants to do and would willingly sign up for. So how did you manage that internal buy-in? How did you bring everybody together and towards the scope?
Sure. So I actually love a good RFP, so that I'm probably an oddball there. And actually, I enjoy the process of migration. It's like just such a sense of accomplishment when you're done. But I'm probably, again, the oddball. As far as managing the process, so just to be honest, I mean, we had a contract renewal coming up, and it was like either we sort of do nothing and let the current situation persist, or let's look at this. So essentially, our contract renewal was in January of 24, and it was June of 23 when I put out my RFP. So, and how did we get, buy-in to do this? Well, it was getting painful, right? I mean, enough people, your CPO is like, why didn't I get this email? I mean, enough of that. You're like, oh, we need to figure out what's going on here. So fortunately, I did have that buy-in at that level. So I didn't have to convince anyone this is what we need to do. It was more so, can we do it in time, like 6 months? I've done this before, so I had a pretty aggressive playbook. So I shared all of what I had, and we were able to just kind of roll. I think a big piece of it was getting stakeholder buy-in. So we actually identified various stakeholders. We had small, intimate sessions with them to figure out, what are your requirements? My goal was to make sure that everyone had a stake and a share in the conversation of doing this. So, and that's what we did. So I ended up with a list of over 200 questions in 16 categories. Everything was scored. I evaluated everything as far as what weight did it have, even before I sent out my RFP.
Yeah, and the 6 months was including the RFP, wasn't
Yes.
it?
So we sent out the RFP in June. We selected a vendor in October, and we went live in January. So it was very fast.
Yeah, and a pretty big RFP, 200 plus questions. Tell us a little bit more about how you structured it, why you structured it the way you did, and just tell us a little bit more also about that cross-functional collaboration during this RFP process, during this decision-making process.
Sure. So again, I had 16 different categories, and they got pretty detailed. But it's really about, well, what does SoundCloud need? And some things are basic, like your SLAs and things like that. But really, again, all those stakeholder conversations, I was able to get specific questions that was concerning to a data engineer. How's the data flowing? What are we going to do if this happens? I was able to get those specific things and work it into the RFP. As far as the process goes, I sent out. Again, I had lots of detailed information. Before I even sent it out, I was like, what would a person reading this want to know? And I included that all in my pre-work. So as I sent it out, we started getting responses. Those stakeholders, I said, hey, let's evaluate these responses. Do you have any questions? If they did, I sent those questions out to the vendor. I was actually probably emailing my participants daily with follow-up questions. And again, yes, I wanted to know the answers. I'm a news junkie, information junkie, but also the stakeholders got to participate in the process. So by the time we were done, they were with me. It wasn't me in a sort of black box doing it on my own and saying, hey, here we have it. It was actually a participation of everyone.
Right. And you also led a very objective process. How did you make sure you stayed data-led? How did you make sure all the stakeholders also aligned and followed the path of making a data-led decision here?
So as I mentioned previously, when I was crafting the RFP, I weighted each question, and each section had a weight. So I had weights all over the place. And then each question, I asked the participants, or actually internal reviewers, to weight or grade everything on a 0 to 5. So by the end of the day, I had, we had six vendors that participated, 6 times 200. Well, those are all the responses we read through and scored. So when we potentially had a conflict where someone felt passionately about something, well, let's look at the data. These are the people who evaluated this. This is what they said. Instead of having emotion play a role, well, what facts are you disagreeing with? Let's actually solve this with the data. And that's sort of how we conducted the whole thing. We did have some people who just were very passionate about, certain things, and, we had to agree to disagree. And that's an important part of the process as well. Agree to disagree and move on.
Right. And I guess bringing it all back to data, making it measurable really helped you then move past the personal feelings, preferences to saying, as a collective, this is the decision you're going with. Now, once you knew the decision you were making, you started the migration process, very, very tight timelines. How did you know that you made the right decision? What validation early on did you get that right thing to do?
Sure. Super early, the first signal was contract negotiations. I've never been in such a fast contract negotiation for a deal this large. We essentially got everyone on a video call, all stakeholders, and we were saying yes and no to things as we went through. Husty happened to be there, so he probably remembers that. And I mean, granted, we only had like, at that point, it was mid-October, we had a January deadline and we have the holidays, of course. So we didn't have a lot of time. We got through that super fast. So that was the first signal. I would say the second signal was end of November. We actually had the SDK in our app and it started to go to alphas. So that was a good point. You know, people were saying, you know, I don't think this is going to work, but they tried. And I would say at SoundCloud had a history, and you know, and a lot of our engineering team is actually in Berlin. We're officially a German company. We're headquartered in Berlin. Tons of fabulous research, but I think actually making the decision to do something that was very hard for SoundCloud historically. And again, we had great teammates who they didn't think it was going to work, and I can understand why, but they still did the process. Super important because I started losing people, and again, German company, I started losing people beginning of December for vacation. It was holiday time. So a few of us stayed on, Mo and Gage stayed on to help us.
You did.
But yeah, it was very tight, but that's sort of how it went down.
Right. And could you also talk us through some early results once you were migrated that gave you the confidence further that it was the right decision? Anything you're able to share there?
Actually, Mo and Gage helped us actually do some of our campaign migrations. We had about 200 different flows that we had to move. And if we had to do that ourselves, we definitely would have made it. So big props to Mo and Gage on that one. I think some early results, even before the complete live day, I think just we started to become more innovative. So for an example, majority of emails SoundCloud sends out are data driven. They're triggered in some form or fashion. For example, our biggest newsletter, it probably goes to about 30 million. It has, if you're a SoundCloud listener or user, it's going to give you recommendations of 4 tracks to listen to based on your previous listening history. So all data driven. And when you're doing IP warming and you don't have your data in a place where you can use it yet, you have to be creative about how you're going to warm those IPs. We had to. So the team decided to, you know, it's holiday season. We have artists who are releasing new albums every week. Well, let's sort of craft a email release cycle per artist that sort of meets how many emails we need for IP warming, and let's send those out. And we've never done that before. It actually worked really well, and we continue that now. But that's, I think, an example of some innovation that we did because we had to do migration. As far as numbers go, again, I didn't have great data previously for reasons I mentioned, but I would say a big difference for us, it really opened up the opportunity to, again, innovate. So a big thing we did was our new release notifications. And most of them are going out on push, but we also do email as a backup. So for example, if you follow an artist on SoundCloud and they release a new track or whatever it is, you're going to get a push notification or an email saying that they released it, come to SoundCloud and take a listen. And those perform really well. We just didn't have the capability to do that before. It's actually, it sounds simple, but it was a very arduous task. Involved a lot of data engineers from SoundCloud and Mo and Gage working together to get that to go. But that's an example of something that's been really successful for us.
Yeah, and it's also been great to see how you've scaled volumes of your email sending specifically, but maintaining the unsubscribe rates. You're able to deliver more personalized communications. And would you also say you were unlocked to track more data just to look at the progress of your users throughout the entire life cycle?
For sure. We definitely do that within Mo and Gage itself. We also, we have a homegrown analytics system. We're a streamer, so we have data all over the place. I mean, if you listen to something for a few seconds, I mean, you're starting to trick. So we have lots of data. So historically, we've been able to do that. I think some of the tools within Mo and Gage makes that easier to do as well. So those are some of the ways that we're using data. As I mentioned, we do a lot of testing. So we have a lot of the control groups, like typically each campaign we're going to have like at least 4 different conversion goals we're tracking. Typically, like one, that's usually there's going to be subscriptions. So, our key is to sell subscriptions, either artists or listeners. But there's other things as well. Does someone listen to a track? Does someone upload? So it really depends. But those are things we can now track that we had a more difficult time doing before.
Right, amazing. And I know we're just about on time, but hope for any other leaders out here who are looking at potentially making a decision on their Martech stack, any recommendations on how do you make the right long-term decision, get the buy-in, and make sure that they're leading a data-led decision here?
I would say initially it's do your homework when you're considering or creating your consideration set. Like when you're thinking about the vendors who are going to be included, that's when you have to really start doing your research. And once you have your research, your rationale, it sort of flows from there. I mentioned including your stakeholders. I mean, making people part of the process. It's more difficult to be a naysayer if you were involved in every single step of the process and you had opportunities, like 10 opportunities to say something and you didn't. Well, if it's done and now you're chiming in, I hear you and I want you to feel valued, but you kind of missed your chance.
Amazing. Hope, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for the candor. This is really helpful. Thank you.
you.
Hope.